Episode 58. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And we are at the height of another week. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the 58th episode of the very best podcast in the world. Personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness included. My God. Today we're going to talk about intelligence and that it is one of the foremost characteristics is the ability to adapt to change, as you may have or have not deciphered from the title before actually listening to it. Now, how did I come up with this topic? Well, on Monday, we had an internet outage. What a difficult word. It doesn't happen all too often. So therefore, you're not kind of really accustomed to it. But our provider decided to replace and renew the wireless antenna, the LTE antenna. Is that the plural? I think so. Antennae, whatever. And in all their wisdom, those fuckers kind of took down the old antennas before kind of mounting the new ones, and thereby led to not an entire, but a significant reduction in our internet bandwidth. Now, my first reaction as a Westerner was to get on the phone, which, kind of defeats the purpose if your LTE is down entirely in parts, or you have to walk quite a while until you kind of hook up to the new or to the other antenna that is, further away. And to start chewing the people out, about how they dare, kind of replace the antenna without, previously mounting the new ones and therefore leading to uninterrupted coverage. That's the intelligent part. It's like thinking about shit before you actually do it. A lot of people don't, neither did they. They had some stupid, what was it? Excuses, actually, for why they wouldn't do it because they couldn't, yada. Long story short, I then resorted to turning my mobile phone into router, access point, whatever, and then, continue on working. This would have been what I would have done had it not been for my renewed westernization in the past, 5-6 years, after returning to the West from several exciting journeys to other worlds. And so, it's like you start wondering about yourself, how differently you react to situations that you're confronted with without being able to actually improvise. And you learn this, or the learning process of improvisation or adapting to situations you're confronted with is something which takes a steep learning curve, because more often than not, the people around you will be subject to just trying to solve the problem with the means available. But it's, not about, or for a lot of them, it's not really about solving the problem with the stuff that is available. And that's really an interesting phenomenon for me to also realize how quickly you unlearn to improvise if you're not often confronted with situations where you have to improvise. And there's another very important thing which you have to realize, and that is that nature does it best. So, we have, for instance, the Darwin's theory of evolution in which he states that, animals adapt to environmental change very quickly within a matter of generations. The most famous example, I think, was with the finch or whatever it was that he found somewhere. I totally forgot. I had it in history class. Anyhow, long story short, animals, and in particular plants, are insanely quick in adapting to environmental impacts. For instance, when trees, for instance, run out of water, they, start pushing less leaves that depend on water. We can witness this in the forest that we live close by, that the foliage has significantly reduced in the last couple of years because the precipitation was significantly less. For instance, it's just one of countless examples. If you're mindful about nature and your surroundings, you'll very often be confronted with things like that. It's just us humans that are more often than not I don't know if I want to say too stupid, but we are too convenient. At least a lot of civilizational parts or people in Western countries mainly are incapable or less capable of adapting quickly to a situation. There's a very famous example that is often quoted when it comes to improvisation and adapting, whereas the NASA, the United States Space Administration, developed or spent millions and millions of dollars on attempting to develop a roller ballpoint pen, which could be used in space. And, it was a very interesting experience for me as a kid. When we flew to the United States for the first time, I took out my fountain pen, which in Germany every student learns to write with, and opened it up in the plane, wanted to write with it, and had this big blob of ink on the sheet of paper below it, because the pressure situation was just different in the plane than it was on the ground, obviously. And this was, in any case, because the environment is going to be totally different in space. The NASA spent supposedly millions and millions upon dollars trying to develop a pen that would actually work in an environment like that. And interestingly enough, supposedly what the Russians did was they just used a fucking pencil, because it works everywhere. Well, not in heated environments, obviously, but a pen would burn also. Goes to prove the point that there are always simple, quick, and dirty solutions that are far from perfect, but that get the job done, right? Now, one lesson learned: if you take too long to adapt, the logical consequence would be that you are not intelligent enough. And in a normal environment would just cease to exist. And that's a very important point that I learned on Monday, is to train your mind and train the skill to adapt to situations that you're confronted with very quickly, and to improvise whenever possible, and to find workarounds, rather than trying to fix things the obvious way with existing methods, which is just going to take too much time. And plus, this whole improvisation thing, which I learned particularly in Far Eastern countries or the Middle East, is that you're just so much snappier at finding solutions, and that our Western way of life actually leads to a significant degree of complacency, I personally believe. That being said, we're wrapping up today's episode early because I was baking bread and things got out of control, and we need to get this episode online before noon, GMT as every day, Monday to Friday, where you will be able to listen to new episodes. In that sense, have a successful day. If you've already had your successful day, have a good night. Sleep well. If you have trouble sleeping, catch up on the successful sleep episode of our podcast. Keep your hands above the blanket, and I will be hearing you again, or you will be hearing me, or we will be hearing each other tomorrow. As always, feedback, questions, comments, criticism to the very best podcast in the world at gmail.com. Stay tuned, stay safe. See you tomorrow.